Dice Tower Tonight, episode 112.
Winners never win or lose.
Welcome to Dice Tower Tonight, a videocast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On tonight's show, we're quitters, but with good reason. We talk about valid reasons to walk away from a game. Plus, I have a new game to play with Crystal in the live chat. We've got some recent play sessions to talk about, and our usual shenanigans with the live audience. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the soothing sentient computer to my stressed out crew member, it's Crystal Dax.
Aw, I love that reference.
It's more subtle. I wasn't sure using the name would actually work, so we got to be more descriptive.
Yeah, no. And I think it's good to be less, I think it's less potentially spoilery too, to do it that way.
Sure. I mean, I guess we can still say that for at least a little while. Anyway, Happy New Year, Crystal. Uh,
Happy New Year, Eric.
I hesitate to ask how your holidays were.
Well, that is because you already know the answer to that query. Also, I saw on the stream that I had this piece of hair that was sticking out, and I've been trying to get rid of it, and I don't know if I have succeeded or not. But
I don't know. Looks good to me.
I've been dealing with COVID for a while, and it sucks. And I got it at work, which was kind of what I was, dreading for the past couple of years, and it happened, and I'm still sick, and it's not going away. Thankfully, my symptoms are mild. I'm grateful that my vaccinations and boosters have staved off the worst of it, but everybody's going to get a little bit more of a subdued Crystal this evening, which honestly, I'm sure some people will probably appreciate.
Well, my best wishes on a speedy recovery, or more speedy than it's been so far, and we'll try and take it easy on you today.
I appreciate that.
So we should probably talk about some games. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea, and I think the chat is going to get real excited by what you're about to show them, Eric.
I was half expecting us to show up with the same game because I know you have a copy but haven't gotten it to the table yet. We're going to talk about the upcoming hotness that people are just starting to get. Return to Dark Tower. This is the new cooperative, although there is a competitive mode in the box, but it's the new Restoration Games reimagining of the classic 80s electronic monstrosity Dark Tower. In fact, let's just show this off right now. This is the tower. It's bigger than my head.
And it's beautiful in person, y'all. I mean, it's beautiful on camera, but it's stunning in person.
It is. I don't. What's going to happen if I turn it on right now? Because it's not going to connect to the app.
Yeah, it won't do much.
It just
I don't
make,
think. Oh,
it just makes
it light up.
You get a little bit of glowing. But
it does a lot more than that.
What's really impressive is when you connect it to the app. This uses an application that then uses Bluetooth to connect to the tower. And there's whirring motors in here. These panels come off. There's chutes that skulls pop out of and all sorts of stuff. It's pretty impressive when you first get it to connect. It does like a test run and calibrates the tower. And then when it says tower ready, and the whole thing just goes... I giggled when it first happened. So the story, there's lots of different scenarios, but there is always some sort of major evil plot, a quest that you are trying to complete, and there is a big bad that you are trying to fight, as well as your selection of various level 2, level 3, and level 4 creatures. You pick these in the app at the beginning. I'm going to fight the wolves, and the ice giants, and the dragons, and then this particular big bad. And so then the app sort of figures out the trajectory of the plot over the course of 6 months. You have until the end of those 6 months to win the game. It's a certain number of turns each month. Your first month is very quick. It's like one turn for each player. But after that, there's an average number of turns. So for a 4-player game, you're talking like 9 turns for each month. But you don't know if it's 9. And there are certain things you're trying to complete, certain quests you're trying to complete before the month is over. And so you don't necessarily know how much time you've got. We had 1 month go like 10 or 11 turns, and then another month be 7 turns in a 3-player game. And that totally threw us off because our timing was all sorts of wacky. You've got a player board that has your abilities and stuff on it. You start with a couple that are unlocked at the beginning of the game, and then you have these little tokens that represent more abilities that you can unlock with a particular currency. It also gives you sort of your rundown of what you can do on your turn. Everybody's got a special banner action that starts their turn, and then you've got the bulk of your turn, which has movement, heroic action, and reinforce actions, which has you running around the countryside. You can split up your movement, move 2 spaces, do something, then move another space. You're completing quests, fighting bad guys, cleansing the countryside. I should probably talk about that too, because at the end of your turn, don't drop them, don't lose them. Okay, here we go. You've got these little skulls, which I'm not sure how well. Yeah, you can. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
No.
That's a little skull, and the tower has a little hole in it. And at the end of your turn, you toss the skull into the top of the tower, and it triggers stuff. The app knows you just did it. The skulls might pop out. And when they do that, you have to put them on buildings. And if you put too many skulls on a building, it's destroyed, and that's not good for you. And these skulls are going to start stacking up. And one of your actions is to cleanse and remove those skulls from the board and hopefully live to cleanse another day. You're also collecting currency of warriors and spirit. There's these 2 little currencies that are, tokens, and you're spending those to complete challenges. The warriors are really good at combat. When you face bad guys, you're usually going to use those warriors. You've got this concept of advantages, that the more of them you have, the more you can reduce how nasty the cards are when you face something in combat. Say you're facing a wolf. That's a level 2 bad guy. You tell the app, I'm fighting a wolf. And it pops up a bunch of cards, like digital cards. And you say, because it's a level 2, you pick 2 of those cards. And then it says nasty stuff happens to you. So card number 1 says you lose 15 warriors, but you can spend these advantages to lower the strength of that card. So it might say lose only 8 warriors. Or if you lower it enough, you might gain 5 warriors, which is kind of cool. But you have to have enough advantages to make that happen. I didn't actually show off the board. This is 1/4 of the board. Do not break it.
Don't pull a Karuba on the Dark Tower.
Break the Dark Tower. I should note that my kids are really enjoying this game.
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
Here we go. It's a very pretty looking board. It's all spread into quadrants, so go this way. Here we go. The tower goes in the center. And there's a north, south, east, west quadrant. So you are given one of those quadrants as sort of your home territory. You're the hero of the north. And so you have a particular terrain that you're good at fighting in because you're the hero of the north. And you're zooming around the board and trying to keep your section clean, although you can go into other areas and complete quests and all sorts of stuff. So that's all exciting, fun, interesting stuff. I love the way the app integrates. There's dungeons to explore. The tower makes noises when you face different enemies, like the wolves will howl. The tower will produce these sounds when you face them. It's a very cool game. A couple of downsides. One is that the game is not short. I mentioned that it runs for 6 months. That can go a long time. If you're talking like about 9 or 10 turns per month for the 2nd through 6th months, that's a long time that you're playing this game. I think it's probably 2 to 3 hours, especially for new games as you're learning the system. The other thing is that you want to invest in some rechargeable batteries. This tower takes three AA batteries. And you have a little meter in the corner of the screen in the app that tells you how much battery power you've got left. You can just watch it draining as you play the game. One session can get it down to about 30%. So really, you get like maybe a session and a half out of each set of new batteries. I don't have the rechargeables ready to go, and I need to start doing that if we're going to be playing this more often. So definitely, if you don't already have a set of rechargeables, it might be worth investing in those because this thing is going to eat those batteries up.
Yeah, that's a good note, especially because I think there's no way to like save a game state on the tower, right? So in theory, if your batteries are at 30%, like you really wouldn't it wouldn't be a good idea to start a new game at that point, right? Is that correct
Well,
to your knowledge?
I
Or
think the app saves your progress.
oh,
So
okay.
it is possible, and I'm sure they have figured out what happens if they suddenly lose contact with the tower. The tower dies.
Yeah.
You can pretty easily replace the batteries and either restart or just pick the app back up. Um,
Okay.
so the app saves like anytime anything happens. We've played where we broke for lunch and didn't want to leave the tower on, so you can turn off the tower, back out of the app. It has saved your progress. You just say
Oh,
resume
good.
game. It reconnects to the tower, and you're good to go. So
Oh, okay. That's awesome then.
you can drain it completely, swap out the batteries, and continue on from where you stopped. We have discovered one bug in one of the scenarios we played. We ended up with a situation where we couldn't win because a particular thing didn't get triggered. But Restoration Games they're actually reporting some of those bugs, and there's a form you can fill out to report that stuff. So I sent it, and I actually they said to me, that's the first time that's happened. So hopefully that can get fixed in a future update. It's just like a flag didn't get tripped or something like that. But the other games have been great and a lot of fun. And I've only won once out of the 3 games we played. Really liking it. That's Return to Dark Tower, and my kids are going to want to play more, I'm sure.
I assume you've just been playing it cooperatively thus far, even though there are technically competitive rules.
There are. I have very little interest in playing it competitively. There are
Ditto.
extra like challenges that go into playing the competitive game, but I think because the original was competitive, there was a push to make it a competitive game. I just think it's so much fun as a collaborative experience that I kind of maybe one of these days I'll try it, but I really don't have any interest for now in playing the competitive game.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I have not fully played the game since it arrived. I unboxed it on the Board Game Blitz Twitch channel, um, which was fun. But since I've been sick, obviously nobody can come over, and I do some solo gaming, but this is the type of game I really want to play with other people. So I'm really looking forward to trying it. But I've play tested it over the years, like in multiple iterations, with a tower, without a tower. And it seems like from the last time I play tested it to now, based on what you've described, it hasn't changed significantly from where it was, I think 2 years ago. Like they pretty much had their ducks in a row for the most part at that point.
Yeah.
It was probably just, ironing out the details.
I think you and I were actually in on that game at PAX 2 years ago, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it does feel very similar. There's certainly polish, especially with the app. The app was, I think, pretty basic when we got to play it. But yeah, I think the pieces have come together very well, and I know that there's an update to the app coming soon to fix a couple of typos that I also took pictures of, and like, hey, look, you spelled that wrong. But I think they're going to be able to fix that very quickly, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I'm super excited and I'm glad that you've gotten a chance to play it a few times and that your boys are enjoying it.
Yes.
So I, being quarantined, have been spending a lot of time back on Board Game Arena, which it's not like I ever left, but that's been my primary gaming as of recent past. And something got added on Board Game Arena that I was really curious about, and that was Seven Wonders Architects, which is the new stripped down, simplified version of Seven Wonders. And so I'll give a tiny bit of my backstory related to Seven Wonders first, just to provide some context. So I first played Seven Wonders close to when it released, which was, gosh, more than a decade ago now, right? No, I don't remember. It's been a long time. And I've never been a huge fan of Seven Wonders. I don't dislike it, but it's one of those games that, like, if somebody else wants to play it, I'll play, but I never suggest it. So I like Seven Wonders. I love Seven Wonders Duel, the 2-player version. And so I was very curious about Seven Wonders Architects, a more simplified version of the game. And since it was on BGA, I decided to give it a try. I don't have visuals for that reason, which is going to make it a little more difficult. So I apologize, but I'm going to speak to it more in comparison to regular Seven Wonders, because I'm guessing that a good part of our audience has probably either played Seven Wonders or seen it or is somewhat familiar with it. If you haven't, I apologize, but it's going to be a little easier without visuals to kind of make some reference points. So Seven Wonders Architects differs from Seven Wonders in a number of ways, all making it simpler, easier, quicker, kind of just all of the things. So in Seven Wonders Architects, each player has a wonder that they are tasked with constructing. Each of the wonders are unique and come with a special power that triggers at certain points in the construction of the wonder. That wonder is the linchpin on which the game runs, because once a single player has finished their wonder, the game ends immediately. That is the main thing you're doing in this game, is just constructing your wonder. The way you do that is, instead of drafting from a hand of cards that you pass from player to player, you have piles of cards that you can select from. Each player has a pile on their left and right that they share with the players on, respectively, their left and right. And there is a central pile of cards as well that all players have access to. So on your turn, the only thing you do is take a single card, either from the pile on your left, the pile on your right, or the pile in the center.
Okay.
The ones on your left and right are face up. You can see what card you're taking. The one in the center, face down. You don't get to see what you're taking, with one exception that I'll mention in a moment. And then you're taking those cards. Those cards have things that would be familiar to anybody who's played Seven Wonders before. There are blue cards that give you victory points. There are green cards, which are science cards, which give you science emblems that you can then turn in to get science tokens, which give you more abilities, more special things you can do. And there are resources. The resources are similar to the base game, or to the original game, in that you collect them to do things, but unlike the original game, you spend resources when you do a thing with them. They do not stick around. In regular Seven Wonders, every card you pick up, you basically keep and use for the duration of the entire game. In Architects, the resources you use to build your wonder go away when you use them, and you have to collect more. The types of resources are far less meaningful. In building your wonder, generally, any level is going to require between 2 and 4 resources, either of the same type or of differing types, depending on which level of your wonder you're constructing. And what those resources are doesn't matter. So you could have, if you need 2 unique resources, you could do brick and stone, or glass and paper. Doesn't matter. Just 2 unique, you're good to go. And when you can construct part of your wonder, the game requires you to. So it pushes the game along pretty quickly in that regard. Coins are also present in this game, but they act as a wild resource that can stand in for any other resource. So they are actually really powerful, because they can help you make those sets of unique or like resources more easily. But yeah, on your turn, all you do is you pick up a card. That's it. And then if you can construct a level of your wonder, you do it. And that's basically it. So the actual mechanisms of the gameplay are fairly simple. Those science cards that I was talking about, that when you collect either 2 like or 3 unique science emblems, you get to take from a pile of tokens that have special powers on them. And they will let you either draw additional cards when you do certain things, give you end of game scoring bonuses, or other things like that. The only thing I haven't really touched on at all is how war works in this game. In normal Seven Wonders, you're building your military throughout the course of the game, making it stronger and stronger and stronger. That kind of happens in this game as well, but since there are no set rounds, war occurs based on the types of military cards that are being drawn. Military cards that have shields on them will increase your military strength, but if they have shields and horns on them, then they increase a tracker that is the same number as the number of players. So 6, if in a 6-player game, you'd have a tracker with 6 little icons on it. They're all doves to start. And as horns get drawn, they flip over to these warlike symbols. And when the scale is full, war happens immediately, and then the scale gets reset.
Okay.
And the shields that didn't have horns on them stick around. That's the only resource in the game that stays. Otherwise, if they had horns on them, they go away after the war, and so it makes war a little more interesting and unpredictable. Because I think in base Seven Wonders, sometimes people, kind of take that war strategy, and once they've built it up, there's really nothing you can do to stop them. But in this game, it wiggles a little bit more. I think it makes it a little easier, and there's no negative points associated with anything in the game. So when you lose a war, you don't get a negative point thing. The person who won gets positive points for it. There's a couple other little things that I haven't mentioned, but I've talked a lot, and I'm sure without visuals, a lot of it's been pretty confusing. Needless to say, I love playing Seven Wonders, the regular game, on BGA because the implementation is so good that it makes the game more desirable for me to play. In person, Seven Wonders, I'm kind of like, what? I could take it or leave it. On Board Game Arena, it's really fun. Seven Wonders Architects, equally fun, at least on Board Game Arena. And I'm now curious to try it in person. I think it's more approachable to a non-hobby gamer than regular Seven Wonders is. People like to say that Seven Wonders, the base game, is simple. And mechanically, it is. But there's a lot of stuff going on in Seven Wonders. If you're new to hobby gaming, like the tech tree aspects of it, where you can use cards to pay for other cards instead of spending resources and all of that jazz. I think this simplifies a lot of the things that are in Seven Wonders down to a level where it would be easier to teach to a non-hobby gamer, but there is still enough interest for hobby gamers as well. I don't know that I'll be adding it to my collection, but it's one that I've been playing on Board Game Arena a lot, so I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
It's one I have not played. I think I saw it show up on Board Game Arena, but it's not one that I've had a chance to sit at, and should try it out at this point.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, I think it's time to play a game with the chat, Crystal. I have something new for everyone to try out today. Have you had a chance to play Mystic Paths?
No, I haven't. I haven't even heard of Mystic Paths.
Oh, well, I've actually been trying to get a hold of this for a while. R&R Games offered to send a copy a long time ago, and they accidentally sent it to my old address, and then something else got lost. So I finally got a copy right before Christmas. Played this over the Christmas break for Family Game Day. It's from R&R Games. It is a Kevin Warden and Brian Leet design. A cooperative word game with this theme of moving through a magical forest and attempting to figure out the path.
How do I not know about this game? It's cooperative word game, and I don't know about it.
Well, I'm going to move the camera in just a second here, but I'm actually going to switch. I was worried about focusing the camera because we've had some issues with that in the past, so I actually took a picture of the board so I can show this off while we're talking. So you've got this board with these branching paths, and every player, at least in the main game, is going to be starting from a different colored point along the side there. And everyone has a card that represents a path that needs to be taken through this arrangement. So you might go zigzagging around this whole thing through 10 steps that you're trying to get them to go through. Now, you have to give clues to tell your teammates what direction to go on each step. So let's see if my full screen is going to work out here. Hey, look, there we go. So it actually looks not too bad as far as the focus goes.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Let me just adjust this just a hair this direction. Okay, so I have a path that I am trying to get you to guess. And I have presented 3 clues. These cards are double-sided. So I have picked from a hand of clues that my clue for the first path, I am standing on this taxes space. So taxes is not a word that you can use.
Okay.
So your first step, or my first step that I am trying to get you to guess, is either satellites, baby animals, or Eiffel Tower. I have a chart that I need to get you to go through this whole path. My clue for step 1 is secret. My clue for step 2, after you hopefully get the first one right, is childish. And thanks to the glare, you can't see my step 3, but it is rural.
Okay.
Secret, childish, and rural. You, Crystal, will be working with the chat to hopefully make our way through these paths. I'm actually just going to move this number 3 over here so that the glare doesn't get us quite so bad. And
awesome.
Move this over just a hair. But yes, secret, childish, and rural. So what you need to do, with the chat's help, is figure out what step 1 is going to be. Is it Eiffel Tower, baby animals, or satellites?
Well, I see that Jerry has put in the chat that he thinks it's satellites, and I would agree with that. I don't see anything that's secretive about baby animals or the Eiffel Tower. So, well, let's see. Yeah, we've got David thinks it's satellite as well. So we'll say for step 1, yep, Kabuki Kid agrees. We're going to go satellites for step 1.
Satellites, final answer?
Yep, final answer.
Satellites is correct. So the space, or the person moves, and we leave the little token that says, I came from there. You never double back.
Okay.
So, next step, you got secret correct. Number 2 is childish. Would that be baby animals, radio, or George Washington?
I mean, as much as I would love to joke and say that it's George Washington, because that would be funny, I think I agree with everybody in the chat who is saying that it's baby animals.
Baby animals for childish is correct. Well done so far. So now.
Joseph in the chat said, I think that Eiffel Tower is hiding something.
Rural is number 3. But now you've got all of these possibilities. Everything other than satellites. You could go back to taxes. You could go to Eiffel Tower. You could go avocado, mustache, or radio.
So technically taxes is on the table even though it is part of the path?
Not everything does, but it is possible.
I haven't looked at the chat yet, but like avocado feels the most rural to me because it has to do with like farming and agriculture. Obviously, I don't know what your hand of cards was. It could be one of those situations where.
Oh, yes. See. I'm only given 4 cards, and I had to play 3 of them.
Right. Yep. So, okay, everybody else is agreeing, though, that avocado seems like our best guess. So that's what we're going to roll with for number 3.
Avocado is once again correct. You have done an excellent job taking the first 3 steps. So that would be 1 round of the game. The game plays over 5 rounds. You're hoping to get as far as possible, but so far, you're well on your way. So now I have to look at I've drawn 3 new cards into my hand, and I am trying to figure out what my next steps should be.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. Please talk amongst yourselves for just a moment while I figure out.
Yeah, while Eric is figuring out his clues, chat, I would love to hear from you. What, if you got any gaming related gifts over the holidays, give me, tell me about one of them. If one of them was pretty cool or unique or special or something that you really loved, drop those in the chat and I'll try and come back and acknowledge them maybe after this round, and we'll talk about them a little bit. So if you got anything cool that's gaming related or something real special for the holidays, put it in the chat. And we'll come back. And I actually, what's funny is one of my my coworkers are not gamers. And one of my coworkers actually got me a special edition of, oh my gosh, what's the name of it? It's a game, the Game of Things that exists already. I think that's a normal kind of mass market party game. They got me the Schitt's Creek version of a Game of Things, and I thought that was isn't that the nicest that my coworker knows I love board games and knows I love Schitt's Creek, and so they got me that, and I honestly I have no idea who I'm gonna play it with. It's that's a pretty niche thing, but it was really lovely that they came up with something special to get me. So
all right, I think I'm ready. Clue number 4, which I think you can see, is cloudy. Yep. Clue number 5 is scary, and in the glare zone, clue number 6 is bad.
Okay. Interesting. So
So what I
The
find
only thing,
cool is that you're also looking at the next clues in sequence to try and figure out what the possibilities are for what I've given you early on.
yeah. That makes sense because you can kind of tailor all of the clues together to make the best decisions. Um, I mean, for cloudy, Eiffel Tower is the one that stands out to me because it's tall, so it would be in the clouds. Um, Jolly Green Giant, though, could kind of fall in that same like realm. Um, oh, and everybody else is saying frosting. Oh, that would be cloudy too. Oh shoot. Okay, so then here's a question for you, Eric.
Yep.
Does it behoove me to, before I make a decision on step 4, to just glance at step 5 and look at the words around my possible destinations?
That could be possible. You've got scary is your clue for step 5.
Yeah, okay.
I can bring up the wider. You're not going to have your position on the screen, but you can see the words a little bit better.
No,
Of
I think
course,
it's
I
okay.
don't know whether
I'm
you
all right.
can.
I can read everything except for the one between frosting and air-conditioned shoes.
That's hot pockets.
Hot Pockets.
Yes.
I mean, those can be really scary when they come out of
Yep.
the microwave. Right. Chat really seems to like frosting, so we're gonna go for frosting for cloudy.
Frosting for step 4 is correct. So
Nice
well
job,
done there.
chat.
So now we've got scary and bad for steps 5 and 6.
Okay. So, I mean, the Jolly Green Giant is jolly. He's not scary. I mean, I'm sure if you actually met him in real life, if he existed, like he probably would be pretty scary. But like he's jolly. He's not scary. So then we're looking at either Hot Pockets or Colonel Mustard. Um, I mean, Colonel Mustard is only scary if he's the murderer, right? But you wouldn't have picked scary for Hot Pockets. I don't think. Everybody is like, Hot Pockets are terrifying. Hot Pockets are dangerous. I mean, they are truly. Like, the fact that they can be both frozen and also molten lava at the same time is terrifying. But yeah, Colonel Mustard is a murderer in Clue. Joseph said, "Chat really seems," or he quoted me as saying, "Chat really seems to like frosting." And he said, "Don't judge us."
Don't judge us for liking frosting.
No judgment there. Frosting is great. Okay, literally the chat is naming all 3 of these things as possibilities.
So it's up
all
to
3
you.
of
You're the
them.
tiebreaker, I think.
Okay, so if we had to say scary and then bad. I don't think it's Colonel Mustard based on what options we would have next. I truly don't think you would put Hot Pockets scary. So even though the Jolly Green Giant is jolly, I'm going to say he's also scary. And that's what I'm going to run with.
Jolly Green Giant is correct for scary.
Woo!
Now you've got bad, and your choices are Hot Pockets, air conditioned shoes, Napoleon, mustache, and avocado.
I mean, I won't lie, Eric. I do like garbage food sometimes, and I have enjoyed a Hot Pocket now and then. But like, just because I enjoyed it doesn't mean it was good. So, oh wait, everybody's saying Napoleon's bad. I immediately went to Hot Pocket. So, I mean, that's probably a smarter choice. Everybody says Napoleon. Let's go Napoleon.
Napoleon, final answer?
Final answer.
You are once again correct. You have made it
Dang.
through step 6. So far, absolutely perfect run.
All
okay,
right.
well, I've got to give you 3 new clues. If we had gotten something wrong, I would have put a marker on here that said that's not the correct path, and I would have gotten to give you another word on that same step. But now we're looking at, we're at 7, 8, and 9 right here. 7, 8, 9. Oh, where
Awesome.
am I going?
And I'm going to scroll back up in the chat and look at what everybody got for the holidays. Let's see. Tommy said, I got Blank Slate. That's a good party game. Kabuki said, I got the Dune Imperium Deluxe Kit. Ooh, very nice. David M. got Nemesis from his wife. DJ Dan got Age of War. Joseph got QE. Oh my God, I love QE so much. Jerry's son got Gravitrax, which is gaming tangential. Absolutely. Gravitrax is one of those things that like part of me wants to buy for myself, but like I know I don't need it, but man, is it cool. Daniel got Forgotten Waters. Ooh, very cool. Oh, you watched my playthrough to help learn the solo version. That's so cool. Daniel, I streamed that. Oh my gosh, was that right at the beginning of the pandemic? I think my playthrough here on the Dice Tower of Forgotten Waters was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I want to say it was like early 2020, something like that. That's really cool that my playthrough helped you learn it. Andrew Mitchell said way too many, which that's a good problem to have, I suppose. Let's see. Bacca's kids got Tumbling Dice. Mr. Coaster picked up a bunch of things at PAX. And I know you're getting close there on those clues.
Yep.
Mr. Travis got Unfathomable, and his wife got Succulent. Very cool. And then Ahemi got some bit bowls similar to the ones that Wormwood makes. I'm missing a couple of things. I apologize, friends, but we're going to head to the new clues.
All right. So if I put this little marker on the card, that means not. So I'm going to say not balanced for clue number 7. Fat
Okay.
for clue number 8. And 9 is surly.
Okay. Okay, so not balanced. That pretty much, like, for me, removes air-conditioned shoes and mustache, and maybe sweat as well. Forbidden City doesn't really make sense. Grand Canyon seems like a pretty good choice for not balanced. Like, it's not a balanced thing. It's a big, sprawling mess of rock structures. I'm gonna wait to see what chat thinks, but I'm Grand Canyon is where I am leaning. Daniel said for the holidays he got shoes so he can run to Target and get his own game. Okay, Mr. Travis Chaos says Grand Canyon as well. I know that there's a little bit of a delay on YouTube, so I'm just waiting a few more seconds. But Jeffo also thinks Grand Canyon. Oh, Tommy Miller says mustache. I feel like mustaches are typically balanced, so I feel like it's probably not mustache. Okay, yeah, most people are saying Grand Canyon. We're gonna go with Grand Canyon, Eric.
Grand Canyon final answer is
Final answer.
incorrect. Grand Canyon is
Oh.
not what I was going for not balanced.
Okay.
So that we're immediately jumping around 4. See how quickly it can turn around. So now I get to give a second clue for each of the words that we've had. Let's see. Let's say for number 7, not charming.
Not charming.
And I get to give new clues for the other ones as well.
So I feel like sweat is a contender now. And Hannah Beertz agrees. Oh, Kabuki says must be air-conditioned shoes. I would think those would be very balanced and charming.
Number 8 is going to be fat and delightful.
Oh, we get new words for all of them.
Oh, yes. And number 9 is surly and beautiful.
Okay. I didn't know we were getting new words for everything.
Oh, yes. So you always play 3 cards.
Okay. So we need to go from, so it's probably sweat, and then something that's fat and delightful would be a cheeseburger, and something that's surly and beautiful would probably be the Sphinx, would be my assumption. Chat, let's see. Yeah, everybody's saying sweat, so let's go sweat for the first one.
Sweat is correct for number 7. We'll remove those.
All right.
And that. And this old one. So now you're up to fat and delightful.
Something that is both fat and delightful. Everybody in the chat is saying cheeseburger, and I agree. I think that a cheeseburger is both fat and delightful. So that's where we're going to go next.
Correct as well. Number 9, I'll move it down so you can see it a little better. Surly and beautiful.
Okay, so technically, I mean, is the Sphinx surly? I guess if you had to describe the Sphinx with one word, and you knew that you wanted to point to Sphinx over Sweat or Grand Canyon, or I guess just Grand Canyon. Like, I don't see the Grand Canyon as surly, but it is beautiful. Sphinx does have a face. That's a good point, David M. So yeah, if we're talking surly, it can't be the Grand Canyon, right? The Sphinx would kill you if you failed the riddle. Good call. Very surly. Let's go with Sphinx for our next answer.
Sphinx is correct for step 9. All right, so we're on to 5. I give you one clue to hopefully get you to number 10. So it's
Okay.
Sweat Radio or George Washington. And I'm going to give you the clue of, oh boy, I could give you a couple of these. No, that's going to lead you the wrong way. I'm going to say Metallic for number 10.
All right. Well, I mean, my first inclination with Metallic, I'm delaying my answer so chat doesn't, can think on their own for a second too.
Yep.
But like, it's got to be radio, right? Like, I'm pretty sure it's got to be radio. George Washington, although he did have fillings in his, what's the old myth that he had wooden teeth?
That is
but
the story, yep.
Yeah, he did not actually have wooden teeth. But
he had far more sinister teeth,
says,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. Everybody is agreeing that it is radio, so we're going to go for radio for our last one.
Radio is correct. You have successfully navigated the path. There we go.
Woo-hoo!
That's the zigzag pattern we had to do. If we were playing this for real, we would have everyone doing what I just did. And so you'd have these crisscrossing people coming from all over the board. And, everyone's path is different. And so you take turns guessing everybody's stuff, and you're trying to get the highest score possible. You total up how far you got for everyone and divide by the number of players. And so basically your average is your score for the game.
Well, that's cool.
But that is, once again, Mystic Paths. Ta-da! From R&R Games.
First off, the artwork on the box is gorgeous. I don't want to, diminish that.
It is.
But it doesn't, if I had seen that on a game shelf, I would have had no idea what that game was about. Yeah. And that's I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice, man. You're missing out on the word game if aficionados and the lovers.
Almost unnecessary theming, I think. It's cool that you're trying to figure out the mystic paths that you're following and using the magic words. That's the story, is you're using magic words to lead people through where you're going. But it's it can get a little off kilter, I guess, as far as what you're trying to go for. I still like the game a lot. It's I think it works as a stream, and it's a fun one to play in person as well.
Absolutely. All right, well, that was super fun. But let's say that halfway through, Eric, we had realized that we were not having a good time at all.
Yeah.
What would we have done at that point?
Well, we would have bailed. We would have quit. And we would have been happy about it because, as we're discussing, there are times when a game's just not working out, and you have to be willing to pack it up and walk away, and that's hard because we're sort of taught from childhood that that's not, you don't want to quit. What is it? Quitters never win. And you have to. You have to stick with it until the end. And that is, I have been in that situation where I have been playing with my kids and trying to instill in them that, well, you started playing the game, you really need to finish it. But finding out when there's a legitimate reason why you should bail on the game versus when the 10-year-old is just being a 10-year-old. There are reasons why you can legitimately walk away, and that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think there is definitely nuance to this conversation in regard to whether you're speaking about adults or children.
True.
Because I think generally adults who sit down to play a board game with other adults have kind of entered into this unwritten social contract, so to speak, that we've all agreed to do this thing and see it to its completion to some degree, and barring emergencies and whatnot. I think a lot of people feel stress about, is there ever an opportunity when it is right to quit or abandon a game. And I will admit, I've had many moments in my gaming career where halfway through a game, I realize I'm really not having fun. And even though gaming for me is more about the socialization than the games themselves, in often, like a lot of the time, if I'm really not enjoying a game, it can kind of ruin the socialization too. Like I need to be getting some enjoyment generally out of a game, or I can kind of get pretty cranky, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Oh yeah. And I mean that's one of the reasons why you might want to back out. If one player is obviously not enjoying themselves, and it's just very clear that this either it's just not clicking, or they've just had a really bad start, or just having a terrible day. There are times when it's no longer worth it to continue. And it just is maybe better to preserve the relationship, preserve the friendship, and say, look, I realize you're not enjoying this. Let's play something else. Let's do something lighter tonight, or something. We can tackle this another day, or just do something else entirely. When it's one person at the table, it's a little trickier when it's one person. I had sort of written that down as I wrote down four possibilities. One player's not having fun. When it's the entire table not having fun, or when it's pretty obvious that it's just not going well for anyone, the game itself is bad, there's sometimes a sense that, am I the only one that feels this way? And
Yeah.
you sort of, at some point, I've had a few times, usually with review games, we're trying something for the first time and it's just not clicking. This game is not landing. But I'm hesitant to move to that point, and I'm often the one that has to say, by the way, if we're not all having fun, we can stop. We don't have to continue this. We can end at the end of the round. We can, finish out the number of turns and just call it quits. And sometimes it has happened that everyone says, "Oh, we could move on. We could just stop playing this game," and it's all this amicable split. Occasionally, though, someone says, "I'd really like to see how this plays out," and then I'm willing to say, "Well, okay, if you are enjoying yourself, we can continue with this." But that's not usually the total adverse reaction. That's sort of the other side of the spectrum. If I'm sort of neutral on quitting, and Joe says, "I'd like to finish it," then okay, I'm willing to finish it and see how it turns out. But if everybody else is like, "Okay, but this person is way not having fun," then I think it's on the group to say, we should consider this person and end it here. A question came by in the chat. I think it's scrolled past by now, but it was a question. Well, okay, it was Kirk asked, "What if players disagree about quitting?" And I think that's when you sort of need to think about the group dynamics, and preserve whoever is most. I think you should go with whoever is most vociferous in their desires. I guess you run into real trouble when you get a few people who really want to see it finish and somebody who really doesn't. And then you maybe just need to take a break. I think the negative has to win out over the wanting to continue in that circumstance. At least that's my
Right,
feeling.
because I think the experience, even if it's multiple people who want to continue playing, I think they will end up with less bad feelings from quitting a game than forcing someone to continue on with an experience that they really are not enjoying. And thankfully, I think you have a number of options sometimes in those scenarios, depending on what situation you're in. If you're, for instance, at a game night or a convention or something like that, where there are lots of options and lots of people around, I think it's easier to kind of say, okay, well, depending on the game we're playing, player B can just step out and they can go and their own way, and we'll just continue playing the game without them. And some games will allow for that pretty easily. Obviously, though, if you're playing a game like Twilight Imperium and so-and-so's ships are all over the board, and there's, sometimes it's harder to excise a person from a game. And I think longer games like Twilight Imperium can end up causing some of those types of situations. If somebody isn't doing well, or really is struggling, or just doesn't enjoy it, and they know they've got 3 more hours until a winner is going to be determined, that can really be a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in some of those circumstances, I have let the person leave. Sometimes it wasn't that they weren't having a good time, but they had to leave. Occasionally that text comes through and says, I got to go home. But
Yeah.
you can't really excise them, so they just become neutral armies, and you fight them or deal with them in a neutral way, but they're no longer making decisions and moving around the board. And it's not ideal, but sometimes that works out that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the I think I lost the comment again, but somebody said there is a difference between quitting and resigning. And some games, I think someone on Twitter mentioned Through the Ages actually has a little blurb that says, sometimes the game's not going to go well for you, and we totally give you permission to say, I'm losing, you won this time, and concede. And instead of dragging it out, let's just decide which of the 2 remaining players was the strongest, because I'm just taking a pounding and I am conceding the game at this point. And I think that's a valid way to do it as well. You beat me this time. It's not that I don't enjoy the game, it's just we don't need to play this out. I have lost. And continuing to play that out for the entire, hour that may be left in the game is not worth it.
Yeah. And I think, I think that tends to happen in 2-player games more often than non-2-player games. Chess, you can knock your king over and concede a game of chess. In Magic the Gathering, you scoop. And there are, other 2-player games, I think, where at a certain point you realize your opponent has bested you, and you can just stop, because otherwise, in theory, both players are wasting their time if they both recognize that the outcome has basically already been determined.
Backgammon has that as its structure. The doubling cube, which I never understood growing up. I was like, what's wrong with this die? It's not, the numbers aren't right. But it is part of the mechanism of the game that the player who's ahead can turn the doubling cube, and the other player can say, all right, yep, I'm out. You win. Or they can continue playing, and then if there's a come from behind, there's actually a tension because it's now worth more points, and it's this whole structure of structured resignation. But it also means that if something is super one-sided, it's not worth playing out. You can just say, "Yep, take your points. You won this one."
Yeah, absolutely. I also think something that I tend to do more often than not. Especially if I am the one that initiated a game. And I think that's an important point of consideration here too, because I think generally the person who has brought the game and taught the game is kind of they're the game's leader of sorts. That's a weird way of describing it. It's not really a leader position, but they're kind of in charge, so to speak. And if I am in charge of a game and I can tell that it's not going well, either for one or multiple players for whatever reason. And that could be, we've got a couple players that have analysis paralysis, and therefore the game is taking longer than it should, or any number of things. I will often suggest to the group that we shorten the game, and say, okay, normally we would play 10 rounds, but it's already 4 p.m. and we have things to do later, so how about we only play to 7 rounds? And if everyone agrees, then you can abbreviate the game, so that way you still kind of get that satisfaction of quote unquote finishing based on your own set of rules now, but that way you still don't have to play out the whole thing. And that has worked well for me in the past, especially when time is a consideration.
A few people in the chat, including Hannah, piped up and said that they were playing a 3-player game, and they were the one that wanted to keep playing, and the other ones wanted to quit, and felt annoyed, like, why did you sit down in the first place if you didn't want to play this? And that's hard, because sometimes you don't know that you're not going to enjoy the game before you sit down and actually start trying it. And somebody else in the chat was saying, well, what if it's a multiplayer game and only one of the people is just out of contention? Shouldn't you just continue? And often that is the situation. I think that's where you have to gauge, are you just not enjoying this particular game and you know you can't win, or are you actively frustrated? And I think when it crosses that line from, oh man, I'm just not going to win this one, but still being generally affable about it, to the quiet, the quiet stare, or just totally just not, you can see the fumes coming out of their ears. That's a different situation.
Yeah. And I've come up with coping mechanisms over the years, I think, personally, because I tend to not want to be the person who's like, I'm not having fun right now for whatever reason. And so if the situation for me personally is I'm losing and there's no hope of winning, I try and flip my mindset to some degree. Winning is never the most important thing to me, but obviously winning is fun. Like, people like to win. And when you have no chance of it, that can be a bummer. So what I try and do then, for me personally, in some games, is set a new goal for myself. And that is to accomplish X, Y, and Z objectives, even if they won't give me the win. Like, I'm going to try and accomplish these certain things within the game. Also, the one thing that I have found more than anything that helps me when I'm losing or am going to lose a game, and I know it's inevitable, is I kind of just start enjoying the player who's winning's turns. And that sounds like a weird thing, and I think it's something that most people don't think about, but like, I will actively start watching the players who are in the lead and like complimenting them. Like, oh my gosh, that was such a good move. That was awesome. And especially after the game is over and someone else has won, I will specifically try and call out something cool that they did during the game, because I think flipping my mindset to one of positivity rather than negativity helps me get past those bad feelings that I was experiencing. And I think that it's something that a lot of people don't think to do. They kind of get into their own bubble in their own world and they're only thinking about their stuff. And I think if you can flip it and be like, wow, look how cool, look how good Joe is doing in this game. Oh my gosh, go Joe, go. Like, that can help you kind of push through that last little bit of a game if that is something that you want to do.
Yeah. Tommy mentioned playing a 4-player game of Eclipse, and they were not going to win the game. In fact, 2 of the players realized it right away, and so they just built up the biggest fleet and had a battle with each other. They didn't get in the way of anybody else, and they also didn't just completely, lay down and let the other players roll over them. They just built up a big fleet and had a fun finish to the game on their terms, which I think is a really nice way to do things. Coraloo mentioned a restart, which is the 4th thing that I wanted to mention. The possibility that, especially for a learning game, that if everybody got enough things wrong that it would be beneficial to just restart. That is a totally valid way to play. Power Grid has the 7 level, early game, like a learning game where you only play to 7 points, basically. And then say, all right, you want to do it again? It's sort of this built-in quit point for new players, and you could easily restart or keep going. I also mentioned on my notes, if you got enough rules wrong, there's an easy point. We try and realize if you made a rule mistake to try and keep things going if possible, but there is a point at which the experience is no longer what it's supposed to be. We tried out the Princess Bride adventure book game over the break and enjoyed it. But we missed the way the rule book is laid out. There's sort of like global rules, and then there are specific rules for each chapter. And we missed the global rule. So we did the setup for chapter 1, and it never said to draw any cards. And the whole idea of the game is that you're collecting cards and getting combinations of the cards. So we had 0 cards to start the game, and it took forever to build up cards because you can't do anything without cards, and you only draw 2 at the end of your turn. And we're like, oh, I'm drawing 2 at the end of my turn, but I'm spending at least 1 every turn, and this is taking forever, and we're never going to complete this game. Turns out that you're supposed to start with 4 cards each, in your hand at the beginning of each chapter, and so we're just like, oh yeah, we're starting over the whole thing. There's no, you can't fix this. We need to start the whole thing over, and that can happen too. And it's again totally valid. If you're not playing the game correctly, don't just tough it out to get to the end. You might as well restart.
Funny, I didn't remember this until literally just now, but I actually have a very recent example of a game that I quit, or the group collectively quit, and it was difficult for me. So at PAX Unplugged, at the beginning of December, there was a content creator meetup that Chris, the charity board gamer, hosted. And so there were a lot of people there that I was really excited to see. And it was in a relatively small room, and there were a lot of people. So it was kind of crowded and busy, and it was noisy, and it was hot, and like all of the things that make a space not ideal generally for gaming, really. And everybody was socializing, and that was lovely. But like some of us did want to sit down and play some games. And I had brought Rosetta, the Lost Language, with me, which is a game I adore. Yeah. Like I love that game so much, and I wanted to show it to people because the company has now, closed up shop and they're not around anymore. And so I figured this is a game I could show to people that they probably can't get their hands on as easily. The room was too noisy. We were too scrunched in. There were a lot of things that were going wrong, and they just weren't grokking it. And for whatever reason, probably because the environment wasn't great, we were all tired. And we powered through a few turns of them trying to guess the word that I had set for them. And then I had a certain point where I said, this isn't working. I'm going to pack it up. And everybody was cool with that. And it broke my heart because I think I may have ruined this game that I love for some of my friends. Like Nick Murphy from the Brothers Murph very clearly was not enjoying it. And I was just like, he would like this game. I know that he would. And I felt bad because that's something that I think you have to take into consideration, before the quitting ever happens is, are you introducing this game at the right time to the right players, for the right reasons? And truly, if I had thought about it, I would have realized that a game like that requires more thought and more brain power than we were going to ever be able to produce in that room. Yeah. And I didn't have that moment of realization until we were already partially through the game. And so I try and be aware of that stuff, but sometimes I still have a misstep.
The environment can play a part. I mean, you're talking about convention games. There's a lot of games that are designed to be played in a quiet room. And especially anything that has sound or app integration or something that, like we've tried to do some of the Unlock games in a convention setting, and there's audio clues that you can't hear. In a crowded convention. I've had to pull out headphones and let somebody listen on the iPad. We got a request to see the doggos.
I know.
And that is another situation where it just obviously isn't working. The game was not designed for this space. We need to just reset and do this another time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things to consider, and I don't think anybody is going to get it right, 100% of the time. But I think being conscientious of yourself, your own feelings, and the mood of the players you're playing with is really important and can help guide those types of decisions when they do come up.
Well, I think that's, I hate to quit on this discussion, but I feel like we've covered the topic pretty well, and we're getting a little late into the evening. So before we take off, we should be open to any questions, if you have any questions for me or Crystal. And any other discussions over how our holidays went. I had, as I was alluding to in our last episode, we did a family game day and got to christen the game room that I showed off last week. Things went really well. It was really nice to have a game space separate from the food space. While we did have some side tables and you'd bring some snacks or something into the room carefully. It was nice to not have to hurry the eating people along, or finishing Christmas dinner, and say, "Hey, can we now play something? Can we clear this off? Can we move the tablecloth? Whatever." We had the space to move a small group into the game room and still have people who wanted to linger over dessert able to have their own space, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's
to
wonderful.
be able to do that.
David M asks in the chat, what happened to the cake, Eric?
What happened to the cake?
The cake that got left at home that
Oh,
you didn't get to your mother-in-law's house.
I forgot about that. Well, one, I was teased mercilessly. More so
You should have been.
than any other aspect. No, we had it on Christmas Eve. So it was the same group of people as well as my whole family that was with us for that. And so we definitely enjoyed the cake, and she loved it. And she's like, the mother-in-law said she forgave me a long time ago, but my wife and stepsister are never going to let me forget about it. It will come up year after year after year, and I fully expect to be teased mercilessly forever.
I
So,
mean, I think what you have to do at this point then is you have to get ahead of the teasing
hmm,
and bring a cake to gatherings where cake was not requested.
just in case, just in
Yeah,
case.
no, like I think they would find that. I mean, if they're anything like me, they'd find that hilarious. You're like, this is the backup cake case, just in case.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Jojo asks in the chat, Crystal, did you enjoy the rest of your advent calendars? I missed finishing the exit one with the group. So, fun fact, I have not finished my advent calendars
Oh,
because, well, so PAX Unplugged happened, and then I got sick, and Christmas and New Year's and a whole bunch of things happened in December. And rather than forcing my way through them when the timing wasn't ideal or whatever else, and I was really having fun streaming them on Twitch, and I didn't have the ability to do that for a lot of reasons, travel and other things. So I think I'm actually going to keep doing the Exit Advent Calendar, possibly on stream, maybe in chunks.
sure,
Advent calendars, who says they have to be opened in December, right?
sure.
Like, I did take the Marshmallow Advent Calendar to my family in Missouri and left that with the nephews because they really like marshmallows.
Okay.
So I had a few more of those, but I gave the remainder to my fam because they wanted the marshmallows. But yeah, I still haven't opened the rest of the Star Trek one either. I should just do that one on my own, maybe.
Very cool. My son got me an advent calendar for Christmas. I was discussing with him about when I was a boy, the only advent calendars I had were just the flat cardboard ones where all you saw was a picture of a candle when you opened a panel. No toys or Legos. No, you just open, oh, an angel, look at that. And so he got me one. He found me one in a store. And so now I've got my boring cardboard advent calendar for next year ready to go.
The equivalent of your grandpa being like, I trudged uphill both ways to go to school, and then you build him a hill made of snow. It's like, here you go.
There you go. Indeed.
Oh.
How has your game room evolved? Not a ton, Kabuki. I mean, we've sort of pretty much the way I showed it a couple weeks ago is the way it still is. I'm probably going to order a few more of those chairs. Those NoHo chairs worked really well. They're very comfortable for gaming. And maybe after I do a few more books and save up a little bit more money, I will order another, I think, quartet of those chairs for the other table. But that's about it at the moment. Other than finding room for the big box for Dark Tower. That's pretty much the same as what you saw.
I have a question for you, Eric, about the chairs specifically. Just glancing at them via video, they look like they may be more suited to slender people. Would you say that is the case, or that body types of all sizes could be comfortable in those particular chairs?
I think there is more leeway for different body types with these chairs than there was with the first ones we looked at when we ordered a couple at Amazon. Those were a lot thinner. This one seems to have it's more of a bucket seat concept. I mean, I'm sure there are limits to what would be comfortable for someone, but I think there is a wider range of body sizes and types that could fit in this chair comfortably. I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, that's good to know. Just based on the shape, I was curious about that. So I, at some point I'll eventually have a game table. Wormwood has created new calendars or new schedules for this coming year for the modular game table Kickstarter shipping. So I think based on their new timeline, in theory, I should have mine, I think in March or April. But like based on their production so far, it's hard for me to believe. So I'm not trying to doubt that. Oh, who knows? Maybe I'll have my table that was supposed to arrive last July in the spring, and that would be great.
Corlu asks if the chairs are stackable. They are not. They have molded bottoms that sort of the legs connect in the center. They don't really. They're not designed to fit over each other. They just sort of they just sit. they would not be able to stack in sort of. They don't have a space saving mode, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And yes, that is the bunny hat.
My bunny hat is not in this room right now, but I also have a bunny hat.
Yeah. And of course the hot
So yeah, Hannah, Eric and I are we're strange. We're probably like the most quirky people on the Dice Tower, I would say, in a lot of ways.
And they put us together for some reason.
There's a really funny clip from the live show we did at Dice Tower West when I hope somebody in the chat is probably more talented than I am and can find the video and the timestamp and all the things. But basically, Sheldon, as we were doing a top 5 list, said, I want to talk to everyone about protection. And both Eric and I, who were wearing our bunny ear hats, popped our ears up. And it was a very funny little clip. And if anybody can find it, feel free to drop that link in the chat or tell me where to find it. I can go probably searching for it if you want. Hit me up on Twitter later and I'll find it. I don't know. But it's
you turned
cool.
one into an animated GIF, so that's on
on
Twitter.
The one of just you and I going,
folks are suggesting I could just turn the chairs upside down and at least stack 2 of them together. And I think, is it Kabuki that said anything's stackable if you try hard enough? No, Joseph says anything is stackable if you are careful enough. So I have a challenge. It's like Rhino Hero, but with expensive chairs.
On that note, I think it's about time for us to wrap things up this evening. Thank you all for joining us today. We are happy to be back in 2022, and we should be back on a fairly normal, regular schedule, I believe. So to that end, we are here every other Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So our next episode will be on January 19th. And we do hope you all come back for that. Before you leave, if you could do us a quick favor and hit that little thumbs up button below the video on the YouTube platform, that will help the YouTube algorithms know that you liked this video and you want to see it again in the future. And it'll also help your friends that like similar content know that they should check us out too. We have a lot of fun here. Y'all are the best in chat, and we want to bring more people into the fold. So we hope that some more people will come and join us for the next episode on January 19th. Until that time, though, I am Crystal Dax.
I am Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching Dice Tower Tonight.
Thank you for watching. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. Crystal and I will see you in 2 weeks for new adventures. Our show is supported by viewers like you. Thanks. Dice Tower Tonight is produced by Crystal and me, with assistance from Tom Vassell, Mike Delisio, Roy Kennedy, Chris Yee, and Rob Searing. Pointing out that it is your turn to pay the bill, brought to you by Tab on You, see? Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by GameNerds.com. Give us your feedback on the Dice Tower Guild at Board Game Geek on Facebook or Twitter, or by emailing us at crystal@dicetower.com or eric@dicetower.com. You can hear more from Crystal on the Board Game Blitz podcast, and I can be found giving Tom a hard time on the Dice Tower. Find those shows and more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all of us at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone. That was a good pun. That was a good one.
Tab on You, see?